The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
I am doing excellent. Thank you for asking. Happy late August to everyone who celebrates, as we are 6 weeks away from NBA preseason starting. And, you know, we covered this already a few days ago, Patreon episode and whatever, but the Suns schedule released in the past week. It's feeling a little bit more real every day. We're getting a little bit closer. I know there are many, many people who listen to this podcast who are probably equally, if not more, interested in upcoming football season.
It's true, yeah.
I like football on a casual level, but for me, it starts to ramp up like in September. Once football season has already begun, frankly, and then just like my excitement takes off once preseason actually begins. Because the NBA season is the thing that gets me through the cold, bitter winters. It's my chicken soup. Right. It's obviously, I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this with you every week, but it's a different level of excitement for me. So I
don't personally care about the NFL very much at all. I'll occasionally watch, and I do enjoy when I'm watching, but I'm not attached to any team. I'll casually root for the Cardinals, and I do feel like we were blessed this summer in general with a lot of basketball. The Suns actually took, first of all, a first-round pick and had multiple picks in the draft, and we got to watch them in Summer League to varying degrees of success. And then we had the two star players on the Phoenix Suns playing in the Olympics, and now we've reached a point of the offseason, I think, where there's not a lot happening. In previous years, as longtime listeners of the podcast will remember, we did our internal development episodes in this little chunk before the season started. There's nobody to do that for on the Phoenix Suns anymore. Devin Booker's entering his 10th year. I don't think we can consider him a young player anymore. They traded away Mikal Bridges. They traded away DeAndre Ayton. Nobody wants to listen to internal development Nazir Little. We're not going to do that episode. So we're kind of having to come up with different ways to do this, and we did this last year. Towards the latter half of this episode, we're going to go through the entire Western Conference and try to track every move that was made that changes the scope of the Western Conference. That way we fully understand what each team looks like going into the regular season. It was really helpful for me last year to not only go through each move, even though we saw them as they were happening on Twitter, but to be able to talk about them with you. It helped me set my brain for where the season is. And then on our Patreon episode midweek, we'll do the same exact thing for the Eastern Conference. And we'll talk about both of those things this week. And it'll help us set and get ready for the regular season.
Yeah, it's a recalibration of sorts. I mean, obviously the Eastern Conference bit is a little bit less important. The Western Conference, we play 65% of our games against the Western Conference, right? So we're going to start with that this week. And, it's just it's as important for the listeners as I think it is for us. That it's so easy to forget where all of these little minimum contract guys have ended up, and it's sort of important to understand where you actually stand. I'm probably going to bring up a bunch of betting odds in this episode, not because we're sponsored by anyone. I just chose FanDuel here because it's the app I personally use. But I have a lot of over-unders here, and I think you would be a little bit surprised where the Suns are sitting in the Western Conference right now, and just their winning over-unders. So we'll get to that later. We'll get to that later in the episode. But yeah, in the meantime, before we get there, what is late August, early September good for in the NBA sphere, if not narratives?
I thought you were going to say optimism.
That was going to be the second thing. There are three words. Or narratives, optimism, drama.
We got all three. Obviously,
we're
going to have some
all three are happening at their max right now. Not at their max. I mean, there's nothing crazy happening, but if you want to attach yourself to anything,
I'm sorry. You're saying
here's
there's nothing crazy happening, but what's happening right now with Devin Booker in the way that people are talking about him? This is the time of year. Yeah, this is the time of year that all the other narratives picked up that caused people to not like him, because the Joakim Noah double team in an open gym thing. That was probably late August. Yeah, it was probably the exact same time of year.
100%.
Yes, they're not major things, but in the last few weeks since the Olympic gold medal game, we've seen so much Devin Booker praise coming from all different directions in a way that's never happened before with Devin Booker. Even after they made the NBA Finals, and he was the best player in the NBA Finals outside of Giannis Antetokounmpo, an MVP. So it's kind of a new experience, I think, for us as Suns fans to see positive talk, not just we're going to talk about the guys who talked about him, from these guys, which I'll say, Damian Lillard, Anthony Edwards, Carmelo Anthony. These are three big names that talked really positively about Devin Booker publicly in the last week, but also just from the general NBA fan, whether it be TikToks or tweets, anything like
Honestly,
that.
Honestly, man, that's the biggest element that's still changed to me. I know it's not as interesting as, say, Melo or Ant or these other guys praising him, because who cares about what like Joe Schmo, the 12-year-old on TikTok, says? However, there is something particularly satisfying that Book seems to have earned so many casual fans now, because that's the part we've never seen before. As early as when he was like 19, 20 years old, he was getting compliments from like LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, guys of that caliber,
right,
were early adopters of the Book hype.
Yeah.
There were people in the national media, even if people, Suns fans will accuse some in the national media of being anti-Book, there were other people who early on were believers in Book. You found examples of that. What we didn't find were casual fans, anyone outside of Suns fans, who were defending this guy for the past several years. And now I think we've really reached a new point of the tide turning, just in terms of the national narrative on him, to the point where, we're seeing fan support for Book in a way that we've never seen before. And for the player aspect of it too, Damian Lillard, Anthony Edwards, Carmelo Anthony, part of it is everyone's got a podcast now. I mean,
yeah, that's true. Or they're at least guesting on one, like Anthony Edwards.
Exactly. Yeah. Every player either has a podcast, or they're guesting on podcasts, or they're having microphones stuck in their face all the time.
Yeah.
So that's definitely part of it. But it is still pretty shocking to me that here we are 2 weeks removed from the end of the Olympics, and this stuff is still coming in. Like on an almost daily basis, there's still Book praise coming in.
Damian Lillard was at a camp and was asked about the Olympics, and he said the character of Team USA this year is what showed the most. You see vets, you see Steph Curry, you see LeBron James, you see KD, even Book. He's been in the league 10 years now, Damian Lillard said. You see guys like that, when they get in the thick of it, that's the character of our game over the last 10 to 15 years. Everybody can't be a star. Everybody can't have the ball. Everybody can't score the points. Somebody's got to be willing to play a role and just contribute to what the ultimate goal is. He really went out of his way. There's even more that he said, but I won't read all of it. He really went out of his way to praise Devin Booker for accepting that role. And I really appreciated that. I think on the other side of that, Anthony Edwards, who just played Devin Booker in the playoffs and won, I would say that Anthony Edwards was not great in that series, but didn't need to be in order for the Timberwolves to kind of stomp the Suns. Also went out of his way to say it. So he said Steph had great games, KD had great games, LeBron had great games, but Book was guarding the best player, turning down shots. Book goes for 70 in NBA games. I'm not going to lie, I was impressed watching him. I liked Anthony Edwards. I liked his compliments in particular, because I think saying I was impressed watching him is not just praising him for accepting a smaller role. It was praising him for the decisions he made within that role. He made the right plays within that role, and that's what can be impressive. It's not just accepting it, it's also thriving within that. And lastly, Carmelo Anthony had a unique perspective, because Carmelo Anthony's done this before. He talked about how when he was in the Olympics, he was also alongside star players. By the way, one of the same star players that Devin Booker is alongside in LeBron James, Carmelo talked about accepting a pick and pop role with Team USA and understanding that it's not going to be high post, mid post Carmelo Anthony ball. Instead, he's setting screens, he's flaring out, he's catching and shooting. And he talked exactly about how Devin Booker was willing to accept a different role than what he was doing in the NBA and called him an unsung hero and the unsung MVP of Team USA. Very cool to see this and to see also how it seems to be penetrating the actual zeitgeist of NBA fans it's been a fun experience for me. What do you think about all three of those things?
All three are great. Melo in particular was interesting just by virtue of the massive role he's had, maybe an understated role even in Team USA's history. At this point, he was courtside at every game, was one of their biggest supporters too. So yeah, the Melo part is huge. And those guys are going to be teaming up again in 2028. They're probably going to be the two leaders of the team.
Yeah.
Them, and we talked about maybe Jason Tatum. So we'll see how it goes next time around. We've also talked about, hey, 4 years is a long time, but maybe Book doesn't have to play the role player role in 4 years, right? Maybe he is kind of
the pseudo point guard or something. Yeah.
Exactly. And 4 years is a long time. But we'll see. That definitely could play out. So we'll see how it works between his chemistry that he develops with Ant over time.
On the other side of all this happy praise from peers when it comes to other NBA players, Kevin Durant found a way to start a Twitter beef. Yeah, post Olympics. Only KD, I think, can find a way to turn a gold medal into a Twitter beef. And I love it. I personally am having a great time with it. But here's the real story. And I know, Sam, you even missed part of this. We were talking about it before coming on the mics here. So I think a little play-by-play of everything that happened can be helpful for those listening who maybe aren't fully aware of what's happening here. But, of course, the German team won the previous FIBA tournament, non-Olympic tournament last year. That was the Anthony Edwards-led team that I believe they didn't even get bronze. They got fourth place overall. Mikal Bridges was on that team too, so we watched a lot of those games as well. So Germany's a pretty good team, and Germany went into this Olympics as probably the favorite to make the final game, and then of course didn't end up making that final game and didn't even end up medaling. But Germany has a vested interest in FIBA. Schroeder thrives for some reason with this German team in a way that he does not thrive in the NBA. And as a player who plays better in FIBA rules than in the NBA rules, he went out of his way after the Olympics ended to say that FIBA rules and the game with FIBA rules requires a higher level of basketball IQ to play and to win with. Just sort of talking about how in the NBA, you don't need as high of an IQ to play. And first of all, I'll say we can have a conversation after I explain this, Sam, if you agree or disagree with that, because I think it's actually kind of an interesting thought. But on the other side of that, KD, after the Team USA won gold medal, tweeted a photo saying entertainment and IQ, because Schroeder, of course, said the NBA was more about entertainment.
Beauty and brains.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really what he said.
Yes, not just brains. And then Schroeder went on a podcast and said, I'm not mad, but actually I'm really mad, and called KD weak and said KD was being weak when he tweeted that. So now we have just some real random beef. And Schroeder said something like, how could he tweet at a guy like me, as if Schroeder was sort of insignificant in compared to KD. And in some ways, I think he's right about that. Maybe KD didn't need to do that. But I will say, if you enjoy this side of KD, it was kind of a perfect tweet to take a shot at Dennis Schroeder. All of them holding the gold medal saying entertainment and IQ. And now I guess we have to keep track of a beef between Dennis Schroeder and KD. What do you think?
What team is Dennis Schroeder even on right now? I can't remember. Was he a free agent?
Well, I guess we'll find out if he's in the Western Conference. He was in Toronto? I believe.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he might.
He was
still
in
be
Toronto, and then he was with Brooklyn because he got traded. I legitimately don't know what NBA team he's on right now. Someone's probably yelling at me about that, and we might find out.
That's why we do these episodes.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. I don't necessarily always love this side of KD, just because it's a lot to keep up with. But you have to admit that this is some pretty excellent trolling on his part.
It's the perfect opportunity. If you're gonna do it, this is the perfect opportunity to do it.
You do it when you can flash the picture of you holding the gold medal.
Exactly.
That's when you do it.
The record holder. Yeah.
Klay Thompson with his 4 rings, except it's KD with his 4 Olympic medals.
It's as if it's as if Klay Thompson said 4 rings immediately after they won, instead of when they had like 19 wins in the middle of a bad season.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. You asked what I think about the original Schroeder comment of IQ. Like, is there more IQ in the European game? What do you think about that? I mean, I'm like maybe, but that's because you guys are worse at basketball.
I don't exactly. They're not as good, so they have to make better passes. On the other side of that, I think
it's like how I play with really high IQ when I'm my team's point guard on the court. That's because I'm horrible at basketball relative to
you make all the right
NBA
passes because you can't beat your man off the dribble. Right.
Exactly. I have a 12-inch vertical, so like I'm doing my best with what I've got, you know?
It's I agree, but on the other side of that, the implication of it is that the American players are sort of incapable of doing it and are dumb. And on the other side of that, if you watch these games, if you watch Team USA play, because of how they were playing, and this is why Devin Booker was getting the praise that he was getting, so often in these games, they would say, Team USA has 28 assists on 31 made buckets, or something like that in the third quarter, fourth quarter. You know, like, they were playing extremely high IQ hoops regularly in these games. And I think that's the part I think that gets a little bit lost in this. The implication that Team USA is out there playing iso ball, they weren't. They weren't doing that the entire Olympics. It's a weird comparison to draw in this particular Olympics. Yeah, maybe 1988 or 1992 or whatever, you can draw this comparison. Not now. It's not the time to make this comparison because they were playing high IQ hoops. The difference between Team USA, I think, and other teams is that when it gets down to a point of the game where everyone's switching, everything gets bogged down, everyone's a little bit more tired, they have better isolation scoring. But if you even watch Serbia in their OT game, I think it was against Canada, at the end of that game, they needed a bucket, and what did they do? They went into the post, and Jokic backed up and shot a post shot, an isolation post shot, to seal the game. That's what happens in basketball. The best teams are capable of doing both of those things. So it just kind of bothered me. The idea that you have to be higher IQ to play in FIBA games, not necessarily. If you just took the FIBA rules and put it into the NBA, a lot of those ultra athletic, ultra good NBA players would probably play pretty similarly, and maybe there would be good things coming out of that. Less calls, for example. But I think the implication that they're playing dumb or something like that, it's unfounded in this particular Olympics. So I think it was a perfect time for KD to clap back a little bit. Schroeder was off base with this one, I think. All right, now that we got that rant out of the way, let's talk about the Western Conference and all the changes that were made over the offseason. I already kind of glanced at this list. There's some that I remembered and some that I completely forgot. I'm going to go in alphabetical order because that's the order the website I'm using goes in, and that means we're starting with our favorite team, the Dallas Mavericks, who re-signed nobody and added Spencer Dinwiddie. I already forgot about that. I don't know if you remembered that.
Nope.
He signed a 1-year deal. Quentin Grimes joins via a trade with the Pistons. Good addition, I think. Najee Marshall and Klay Thompson. Najee Marshall was their free agency addition, so they got him for 3 years. And then Klay Thompson with the sign-in trade with the Warriors, which was also, I believe, 3 years. Has to be at least 3 years. And the departures were Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Derrick Jones Jr. They said get rid of all the juniors. Are the Dallas Mavericks better? The same? They made the finals. We can't discount that.
Yeah, I'm evaluating them purely as a sort of regular season entity. Not that I think their finals run was a fluke or anything, but when you say, are they better, I'm interpreting that to mean, can they, push themselves into a higher tier in the Western Conference as a threat in the regular season, right? It's not about they need to make the finals again, for me.
Yeah,
personally.
So much of the playoffs will be about who's healthy and not in the Western Conference. So, yeah, I think it's fair to just look at this as a proposition specifically for the regular season. And to me, when I look at the changes they made, they kind of doubled down on offense. Spencer Dinwiddie and Klay Thompson. Look, obviously Najee Marshall is going to be like a defensive addition, but Derek Jones Jr. and Josh Green were kind of defensive players. Both of those guys are gone. So in some ways, the combination of Najee Marshall and Klay Thompson, they have to replicate what Derek Jones Jr. and Josh Green did defensively and what Tim Hardaway Jr. did offensively. And look, I think if they get slightly worse on defense and slightly better on offense, and I'm not convinced that they're going to be slightly better on offense, I'm not sure that makes them better overall. Maybe in the regular season it does, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's an entirely fair evaluation. We're dealing with a team that wasn't particularly good defensively last year until they were great in the playoffs. I think they were certainly bottom half in the first half of the season. Then they made some midseason acquisitions. The PJ Washington move turned out to be absolutely great for them.
Yeah,
I think when it counted in the second half of the season, or not even second half, but post All-Star break, they started winning a lot of games. They were 13th in defensive rating post All-Star break, I believe. Mm-hmm. I looked that up earlier today. And then in the playoffs, it turned out that, okay, I guess Derek Jones Jr. and PJ Washington and Derek Lively is going to be enough for them to build a defense around. And,
well, Daniel Gafford was awesome.
And Daniel Gafford as well. And they'll be able to, as you said, double down, triple down on offense. And so they're continuing to pursue that strategy. Does Klay Thompson actually have enough juice left in him that it will matter in the grand scheme of things? I'm not sure. So I think they're going to be an interesting case study. My initial reaction here would be that they're essentially the same as they were last year.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. And I'm curious if the wins reflect that at all, because I know you have the over-unders and what they won last year. I do appreciate that one of their big moves was to sign an aging Klay Thompson who has gotten worse in every year for the past few years and will not get better. It's possible he'll have a little bit of juice to start this year, but over the next few seasons will probably continually get worse year after year, because that's what happens with age. That's generally how it goes. And that was kind of their biggest addition. The real additions to this team were at the trade deadline last year. I think adding PJ and Daniel Gafford, that's what made them a better team last year.
A move that
they'll
was
get
kind
a
of
full season with them
at the time, a little bit. If we're being honest,
yeah.
there were a lot of people who didn't believe in those two, and then they certainly proved them wrong.
Well, Gafford, I think, was always a little bit under the radar as far as a player who, by all metrics, finishing and rim protection, was a really good center.
I think PJ was too. I think just them being on Washington and Charlotte.
I just didn't think PJ was much better than Grant Williams, and he was. Grant, he's taller and longer. I think that makes you a little more effective in the playoffs. But overall, I think they're about the same. Where do their wins stand?
Yeah, FanDuel puts them at 49.5, and they won 50 last year. Basically,
exactly the same.
I think this is right. I think
it is too, because I think they'll be better in this upcoming regular season than they were in the previous one, specifically because they're going to have Gafford and PJ for the full season. So it's possible, if I had to bet on that one, I'd probably bet the over. And I'm curious now, as we move on to the Denver Nuggets, how we feel about this one.
Our other favorite team in the Western Conference.
Yeah, but
we have a lot of favorite teams in the West.
One that's pretty dramatically different as far as, well, first of all, their one player they re-signed was DeAndre Jordan. So DeAndre Jordan is returning. Their departures, I think, was the big story, as we know, with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope going to the Orlando Magic. Reggie Jackson, not a huge departure, and then the additions were Dario Saric and Russell Westbrook, and that's it. That's kind of all they did. It's not an impressive offseason for the Denver Nuggets. We've had a lot of conversations already talking about watching a championship roster slowly be dismantled, with Bruce Brown leaving and then Kentavious Caldwell-Pope the following year. And we're watching a team that I think will be a little bit of a shell of its former self. Russell Westbrook, I think, will thrive with the Denver Nuggets as an individual, but I don't think makes them much better as a team because they really need shooting and KCP's gone. So, yeah, this is a team. I'm fascinated to see where it stands, but what do you think about what happened this offseason? I know we've talked about it a lot, but where do you stand now?
I like the Saric pickup.
Yeah, I mean, he'd be good on every team, like as a backup big.
Yeah, otherwise, there's just not a lot here, man. There's not a lot here to look at, and
they got worse.
Just as they got worse, the FanDuel odds bear that out as well. They're set at an over/under of 51.5, having won 57 games last year.
57.
Yeah,
and they're in a weird situation now where it sounds like, based on the chatter, I hope this was reported, that they don't want to sign Jamal Murray to a max extension, and he wants a max extension. So where do they go from here, I think is a question. He's not a free agent yet, but he is a player who currently wants an extension, and we'll see what they do. I just don't really see a scenario where they get close to that 57 wins, so that 51 is pretty good. But I would say that if I had to guess what they'd win next year, it'd probably be in the high 40s. And not the low 50s. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Fascinating. Fascinating to see them shoot themselves in the foot with the greatest player on the planet currently. A bizarre situation to be in. Okay, here's a team in the Golden State Warriors, Sam, that made quite a bit of changes last year. And I'm curious how we both feel about where they stand at this point because, obviously we talked about the Dallas Mavericks in the sign-in trade to get Klay Thompson, but they also lost Chris Paul, who was on that team. He was waived, technically had $30 million on his contract still, thanks to the deal he signed with the Phoenix Suns. They just waived him to get off of that because it was non-guaranteed. And then Dario Saric, who we talked about as well, going to the Denver Nuggets. Their entire bench offense when they were okay was Chris Paul, Dario Saric pick and rolls. They added Kyle Anderson.
Yep.
Buddy Hield, which was a sign and
big.
trade. Yeah, I think the Klay Thompson replacement, you could say. DeAnthony Melton, and then Lindy Waters III, which was a trade with the Thunder. I think part of the Klay Thompson sign and trade. That was kind of part of it. So essentially, they lost Chris Paul, Dario Saric, Klay Thompson, added Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, and DeAnthony Melton. I mean, they added three good players, but they lost three good players.
They certainly got younger. This is one of the more interesting teams, I think, at the West, just because of the institutional name that the Warriors are at this point. And, there's so much hand-wringing every year, and I totally understand this coming from San Francisco-based media and fans and whatever, about, like, have they just been wasting the latter half of Steph Curry's career? I know they did they recently win a championship that, in hindsight, was kind of a miracle
and
that they were able
weirdly forgettable championship, but yeah.
Weirdly forget. Well, I don't. Do you feel that way? Did you not watch that one? I think a lot of Suns fans,
I was not in a good place.
Exactly. A lot of Suns fans tuned out of that one because we were still mad about the way the team went down against Dallas. But arguably, that was like the most impressive of all of Curry's rings so far. Since then, and just the past several years in general, it's been a little bit difficult to understand exactly what their strategy is for building around him. They finally moved off Klay Thompson. I think if you want to make the argument that bringing in Buddy Hield is, just exactly a lateral move, that Buddy Hield can provide what Klay Thompson provided for the Warriors the past couple years at this point, I think that's a totally fair thing to say. I think Klay is just not very good anymore. Buddy Hield is not very good either, but at least he's one of the best shooters in the NBA still, and that's what he's being brought in to do.
So they replaced bad Klay Thompson with bad Klay Thompson.
Essentially, yes.
And they didn't necessarily get better at that position, though, right? In the loss of Klay Thompson, which I find
I know, and that's sort of the overall theme here, right? Which is this team is still going to live and die by Steph. Draymond is still entirely unpredictable. In fact, I would say you just can't rely on Draymond at this point in his career. And certainly there are they've done a decent job of drafting some young guys who they're hoping can get better. They've got a lot of stock in Brandon Podziemski, who I don't know, had a really good rookie year. Maybe he gets better, but like, is that really what, you want to tie your season's improvement to any potential improvement in him and maybe Kuminga?
Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be difficult for them. I think they are still clearly a mid-tier team in the Western Conference right now, would be my evaluation. How do you feel?
They wanted to trade for Lauri Markkanen. Had they traded for Lauri Markkanen, who now cannot be traded this year because of the date that he signed his extension, the first day he can be traded is the day after the trade deadline now. So he cannot be traded this year. So there's no Lauri Markkanen on the Warriors this year. Had they done that, I would say they improved. They didn't. And now they're relying, like you said, on Kuminga and Podziemski to be very good. I don't think either of those guys are stars. They're not going to carry this team post Steph Curry. That's not in their future. And if they are the main stars on the team post Steph Curry, they just won't be good. They'll be a bad team. So they're relying on them to get better. And I think at this point, Steph Curry, even in the Olympics where he had his moment, was not necessarily good the whole time. He's still a great player. He's not going to have it all the time. He can't carry that team. There's no more Klay Thompson helping him out in that shooting. And then, of course, like you said about Draymond, who knows if he'll even play. And even on the other side of that, like DeAnthony Melton, who I think is a good signing for them, didn't play very much last year and was injured a lot. There's no guarantee that he's going to play a lot this year. Outside of that, Kyle Anderson replacing Chris Paul off the bench, a much better defender, a much worse offensive player. Chris Paul, as we know, is an offense unto himself. I don't see a path where this is going to be like a good to great team. I think they could miss the playoffs. I think the Warriors could miss the playoffs this year. At the very least, be another play-in team, which they've done in the past. So
yeah, I could see that.
I don't know if you have the wins in front of you there. I'm curious.
They're at 43.5.
Okay,
and they won 46 last year. Honestly, I'm tempted to take the over on that.
It's pretty low, yeah.
Because 43.5 for a Steph Curry-led team. You're predicting at least some baked-in improvement from Kuminga and Podziemski, like a little bit, right? And again, I think Buddy Hield is basically Klay Thompson, so I don't think they got worse there.
So 40. So let's see. I'm looking at the wins in the Western
I could see them win
Conference.
45 games, but I could also see 45 games being a play-in team.
So the
West.
Thunder won
That's
57 last year. Nuggets won 57. So 43 wins would have put them at the. Well, it's exactly where they were, the 10th seed. In this is how good the Western Conference is, right? So this is kind of what's interesting about where they stand. They could win 43 and still be out of the playoffs entirely. That's what the Western Conference is, and that's what it was last year, and that's what it could be this year. So yeah, I think that's. I don't know. I might take the under on that one. I'm not going to bet it either way. We're just more talking about kind of what the casinos, I guess, what the apps think their wins are going to be. And I think that's a pretty fair line for them overall. Not really impressed with their offseason. I think, I wonder how their fans feel. Like, if they're just mediocre to bad, wouldn't they rather just have Klay Thompson and enjoy this sort of them riding off into the sunset? Or maybe not. I don't know.
No. I don't. Well, I can't speak for them, obviously. From what I've seen, I think there were plenty of Warriors fans who were ready to move on from Klay Thompson, that felt that they needed to do something. But you're totally right that this is not enough in the eyes of them, right? Like, I think they were thinking, let's move on from Klay and make a move at Lauri Markkanen or some other big star who's going to be on the market. That never materialized. And now they're sort of in the same exact place, just with a slightly younger core and players who they're less familiar with.
Right. Fascinating team. I think they're going to be mediocre to bad. If Steph Curry misses like 20 games.
Well, sure. You can say that about a lot of these teams. If Steph misses 20 games, then they're toast.
Yeah, but they have no other star player. Like he is the star player on the team. They just don't really have anything beyond that.
It's a shame what happened to Wiggins, man.
Yeah.
Not that he was ever a star, but like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, a mystery too.
His fall off was crazy.
Yeah, he missed part of the season for personal reasons. We never found out what those personal reasons were. Not that we need to know, but maybe that impacted him. Maybe he can come back and be better next year, but he sure was not good last year. Houston Rockets. This is a bizarre one where they basically did nothing. They re-signed Aaron Holiday, and they traded for AJ Griffin from the Hawks, and that's it.
Phoenix Sun all-time great, Aaron Holiday.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of fans being super in on Aaron Holiday when he played about 25 games here under Monty Williams a couple years back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they wow. This one is surprising.
Mm-hmm.
They really didn't do anything.
And this was a team that was thirsty to do something. If you believe all the reports from Brian Windhorst, I mean, they wanted KD. And
so they added Reed Shepherd with the third pick.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit. Did you mention that?
No, I don't have the picks on here, so I should mention all of these teams. Most of them drafted someone. Yeah,
yeah, and so Houston, despite already being a good team, had a great pick. And Reed Shepherd is one of those guys who's just such a tremendous shooter that I could see him making an impact in year one.
That's true. Yeah.
But you're right. I guess basically the thought here is just they're gonna let Şengün and Jalen Green and Amin Thompson and Cam Whitmore and all these guys who are comprising their young core, they're just going to go the continuity route. And I guess it kind of makes sense, too, if you view it from the framework of last year was already their attempt at adding a bunch of stabilizing veterans, right? They brought in Van Vliet. I thought that was successful. They brought in Dylan Brooks. I thought that was successful.
Yeah.
So they're just going to continue to... they brought in Jock Landale. That one was a little bit less successful, but they're just going to continue to roll with those guys.
Jeff Green.
I guess that's the move.
Did you remember Jeff Green was on that team?
Yes.
Reggie Bullock was on that team for a while. Steven Adams, I think, still technically on that team. If he comes back and he's healthy, that could help them out too. He's pretty good. Do you have thoughts on Jabari Smith Jr. and what he could be in the future? There was a lot. We talked a lot about these young guys on Houston when it was rumored that they wanted.
There was a week of KD
carried us through a week in the summer. Yeah,
I don't know what to make of Jabari Smith Jr., who had a better sophomore season from an efficiency perspective, but I think still has a bunch of issues regarding sometimes his motor and sometimes his shot selection, and I think that's been an issue for a lot of guys, a lot of young guys in this Houston system, which is why they've wanted to build a better culture to actually start developing these young guys with other vets around them rather than just throwing 15, 20-year-olds together and asking them to figure it all out. That's sort of the Ryan McDonough approach that we already know does not work. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love Şengün. I like Amin Thompson. Do I like Jabari Smith Jr. as a prospect? I think when we were talking about it, under the context of a KD package, he was probably the guy who I was least into.
I think he'll be good. I don't really see a all NBA player upside with him personally, but I don't know. Maybe that's not really this is their internal development continuity season. I don't know. We don't know any Houston Rockets podcasters to lob that idea for a few weeks of podcasts to, but they clearly, this is a team where they made no changes and they could still get better. Do you know what I mean? Because there are opportunities, or there are teams out there sometimes that make no changes and they're just going to get worse. This is not one. They almost made the playoffs. They made 0 changes and they could make the playoffs next year because their roster is young enough, and just some level of improvement by one or two of those guys, Şengün, I think, being one of the more important ones here, could vault them into the playoffs pretty easily. And
if I had to guess, what their fans are telling themselves is that they want to do the OKC thing. They think that they didn't have to bring in any outside help, and their young guys are all just going to take the next step on their own and vault them into 50-win territory. The obvious issue is they don't have an SGA on this roster, as far as I can tell. It would be great if Jalen Green could be that. I don't think he's that.
No, so yeah, they're not. Yeah,
their over/under here is set at also 43.5, the same as the Golden State Warriors.
So will the Rockets be better than the Warriors? Is an interesting question. I wouldn't bet on that either, but I think probably
that totally feels like a toss-up to me.
Yeah,
totally feels like a toss-up.
That is the changing of the guard right there. I think, yeah. The one major and interesting trade they made in the offseason was trading the Brooklyn Nets picks back to them for the Phoenix Suns picks. That was the only real interesting thing that they did. Now they own the Suns picks. There's a gamble related to that. The gamble could be that they expect by the time most of these Suns picks convey that the Suns will be worse than the Brooklyn Nets, or they think they could get somebody like Kevin Durant in a trade. And now they own the Suns picks, and they could try to trade the picks back to the Suns to get somebody like Kevin Durant. Or if you believe Woj, they're risking it on Devin Booker being unhappy post Kevin Durant. It's an interesting gamble. I think it was a bad choice. I mean, even if the Brooklyn Nets weren't trying to tank, they were going to be bad anyway, and you might as well keep those picks. But they took that risk. I think maybe they see some sort of value in that. Any other thoughts on them?
No.
Honestly,
all right. I'm pretty interested in the next two that we're going to talk about. I'm already thinking about the Clippers.
Right. Clippers made a ton of changes. A ton of changes.
This is a fun one.
Yeah.
If you put your hater cap on, especially, this is a fun one.
Well, yeah. How good could they be? They're a team full of role players with Kawhi Leonard, which I don't know. The player, they have James Harden. I don't want to discount James Harden, but we'll see how good he is. The departures are the interesting part because Paul George, of course, left via free agency to the 76ers. Mason Plumlee to the Suns. Daniel Tice is now on the Pelicans. Pretty good signing, I think, for the Pelicans. Russell Westbrook, and it was traded to the Jazz and then again, I think, waived and then signed with the Denver Nuggets. So Russell Westbrook is gone. They re-signed James Harden, which was no guarantee, by the way. That was not something I think that we all predicted would happen. We really didn't know what would happen with James Harden. And then to replace all those guys that left, Mo Bamba, Nick Batum, Chris Dunn, Derek Jones Jr., and Kevin Porter Jr., 4 good players. I mean, like Mo Bamba, Nick Batum, Chris Dunn, and Derek Jones Jr. would be a great offseason for most teams. Yeah.
What's really funny about their offseason is as I was watching these guys come off the board on like July 1st, July 2nd, whatever, I was like, man, there's another good veteran minimum name. Like they were all names that we were interested in on our free agent primer. Derek Jones Jr., Mo Bamba, Chris Dunn.
Yeah.
They're good players for the minimum. But trying to replace Paul George with that is kind of trying to replace Amari Stoudemire with Josh Childress, Hito Turkoglu, and Hakeem Warwick. You know, it's like not possible. And I'm worried about. I don't even know if I'm worried. I don't want to be accused of they're my Clippers again or whatever. But Kawhi Leonard, man, had to drop out of the Olympics, and we don't know what's going on there because we never know what's going on with Kawhi.
Yeah. I'm not even sure the Clippers. I'm not even sure the Clippers.
You were talking about the Warriors live and die with Steph, but honestly, man, so this team they're set at 40.5 as their over under.
Wow, that's pretty low. Actually, I did not expect that.
So I agree that's pretty low compared to the 51 they won last year. But like, if Kawhi plays 35 games this year because his knee is fucked, I could see this team winning 25 games.
Yeah, and James Harden is like always just like on the verge of completely giving up, right? and no longer trying, just kind of entering the sort of Gilbert Arenas phase of his career.
And just if Kawhi goes down, they're James Harden and a bunch of minimum and Zubats and a bunch of minimum contracts. Like they could be really bad. They could be really bad. So this is probably, ironically, my Clippers, not my Clippers, whatever, but like. Probably one of the teams I'm most pessimistic on in the West right now.
Yeah.
I mean, would you go
under that 40.5 wins?
I'd be tempted. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a good bet actually. You probably get better odds for that. I don't like anything that they did as far as if you look at it all together, but it is funny how if you look at just the individual signings, they're all pretty good players. It's just tough. We've seen it time and time again. You can't replace star players. Even Paul George didn't play a lot, but when he did play, he was better.
They're pretty good players, none of whom can create for themselves.
Yeah.
Chris Dunn is a great point of attack defender. Derek Jones Jr., with his lobs, it has some defensive versatility.
He's fun.
Mo Bamba can block shots and hit threes. But if Kawhi goes down, none of those guys create. And you're now a terrible team. you're a terrible team. So I don't know. They're going to be tough.
Los Angeles Lakers. We talked earlier about the Houston Rockets doing nothing and then potentially getting better. The Lakers did nothing and they're probably going to be worse. I mean, I shouldn't say they did nothing because they re-signed LeBron James. But nobody really thought LeBron James was leaving, so I don't think that was any sort of big surprise. Sorry to the Suns fans that thought.
Sorry to the Suns fans who thought he was going to be following Bronny here on a minimum contract.
We never thought that. But, Max Christie, LeBron James both returned. They're both resigning. They lost Spencer Dinwiddie and Taurean Prince. I'm not even sure they have a full roster yet. I think they're, obviously they added Bronny James, and they added Connect, right?
Dalton Connect is going to be kind of eating up a lot of those Taurean Prince minutes on the wing.
Yeah, so he'll be
and had a good.
Yeah,
if my memory serves me correctly, I think he had a good summer league. Connect.
Yeah, he had a good start to summer league, from what I remember. I don't think it finished as exciting for the Los Angeles Lakers fans, but LeBron James, getting a little bit older, looked good in the Olympics, but kind of thrived when he stopped really trying to be the guy to drive to the rim all the time and just started being the guy that's passing the ball a little bit more. And AD was awesome in the Olympics and probably will continue to be good, and quietly played a lot of games in the last year, maybe 2 years, and could potentially play a lot this year. That would be really helpful to them, but other teams improved around them. I think they did not improve, and they were a team that they won one more playoff game than the Suns, right? They were 4-1 in their when they got kicked out of the playoffs, and barely made the playoffs to begin with. I don't really see a path for them being better. I think if I were a Lakers fan, let me put myself in those shoes, not most exciting place to be, I'd be extremely upset with their management as far as this offseason. It's just kind of embarrassing to have somebody like LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and they're just not doing anything to make the team better in the last few years.
Well, we're overlooking the arguably greatest acquisition they made this summer. Mm-hmm. We haven't mentioned his name yet.
JJ Redick.
JJ Redick, head coach.
Yeah, that's true. He could make a big difference. It's true.
Former Timeline guest.
Yeah.
Jonathan Clay Redick, according to his Wikipedia, which I never knew was his full name.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Why is it Is he Jonathan Jr.?
Probably.
Okay.
If I had to guess.
Okay. He could make a difference, but how much of a difference can you make? LeBron James is on that team. You know who the real coach is.
Put yourself in JJ's shoes for a second.
Okay.
You come in and what's the game plan here? Because the front office is they're telling you, I hope you're hungry for nothing, basically, to use that meme. So they haven't given you any acquisitions. Maybe you can draw up because we know JJ loves his set plays. Maybe you can draw up a lot of off-screen movement for Dalton Connect, who's a great shooter.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, what's their offense going to look like? What's their defense going to look like? Their defense is Anthony Davis, who continues to be phenomenal, even far into the latter half of his career, and not a whole lot of personnel around him. And I think losing Taurean Prince, they even got a little bit worse on that end too, just through sheer personnel. So it's not an easy job.
What do they have their wins set at? I'm curious.
They are set at 43.5. Yet another
Interesting.
team. And this is sort of I'm sure a lot of this is algorithmically generated. There's a model that does it. I'm not sure, but maybe part of it is just FanDuel kind of throwing up their hands and being we don't fucking know. All these teams are going to be somewhere seeded 5th to 12th in the Western Conference. Right. And there's just a lot of teams that are going to end up in those mid 40s. But you'll notice that's how many of 16 games for the Suns come against just their 4 opponents in the Pacific Division. And at times in the past, we've talked about how absolutely loaded the Pacific Division is. Well, this year, none of these teams are a cakewalk. Absolutely. All of them are going to be competitive.
Well, they were all good last year, but none of them improved.
We just talked about Golden State. They're set at 43.5. Clippers are set at 40.5. Kawhi goes down. They could be really bad. Lakers are set at 43.5. The Suns, we haven't talked about the Kings yet. I think the Kings are going to be interesting when we get there. But the Suns should be the favorite in the Pacific Division. They should be able to handle business against these other 4 teams, the way I see it.
I think that's fair. Let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies didn't make a lot of moves. Luke Kennard re-signed. I don't know how to say this name. Mamadi Diakite? Trade
yes, I think
via
so.
the Nets.
Yep.
Sorry if I butchered that. Zaire Williams is the player that's gone. Obviously, they added Zach Edey in the draft. I think that's the big one. And as we know, the real big addition to the Grizzlies is Ja Morant, who missed basically all of last season with a suspension, then an injury. And Ja Morant returning, I think, will make a massive difference. I think halfway through the season, they just kind of started tanking anyway.
They lost Yuta Watanabe to retirement, which was their biggest loss, as we all know. This is a fascinating team. I have to pull up their basketball reference
They were
page.
good just 2 seasons ago. Really good, in fact. It kind of, I think they ended the season as the 2 seed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, lost in the first round.
Yeah, and,
but
they lost
yes.
it, but they were absolutely a buzzsaw in the regular season. They won a ton of games. Ja Morant, of course, one of the best players in the NBA at that time. Obviously, a ton of stuff has happened with Ja Morant since then. That, you know, how you feel about him off the court probably differs from how you felt about him off the court previously. But on the court, he hasn't really changed that much if he comes back from this injury healthy enough to play, because he was incredible when he was on the court.
The Grizzlies won 27 games last year. They're set at an over-under of 47.5, which is by far the biggest increase that you'll see out of any team. So where we see a lot of these other teams are starting to, FanDuel maybe seems a little bit more pessimistic on their outcomes. It's because they have to make up the difference in all these additional wins that they think the Grizzlies are going to get. Mm-hmm. Maybe that seems absurd at first until you look back at the year the Grizzlies just had and realize a couple of things. First, they had 33 players suit up for them last year. 33 players played for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Mm-hmm.
You get 15 normally, right? 17 with the two-way contract guys. The average team maybe, relies on a 10-day at some point or picks up a couple guys at the deadline. Like maybe you get up to 20, 21. They had 33. Their 4 best players, I think in terms of talent, here's how many games they played. Jaren Jackson Jr. had a relatively healthy season. He played 66. He was their only guy with over 2,000 minutes. But even he did not play the full season. Desmond Bane only played 42 games. Ja Morant only played 9 games. And Marcus Smart, who was a big trade acquisition for them, only played 20 games. So once you realize all that, it's pretty easy to see where this differential is supposed to be coming from, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just Ja. Much of it is Ja. But it's not just Ja. It's also, can they get Desmond Bane back for 65 games? Can they get a real season out of Marcus Smart? Can they just have a little bit of continuity to not have to, have 33 guys suit up for them, which is truly ridiculous. I mean, that is absolutely insane. Shaq Harrison, my guy, from back in 2017, 2018 era Suns. He played for the Memphis Grizzlies last year. He played 6 minutes for the Grizzlies.
That's tough.
Shaq Harrison is now 30 years old.
I
have no idea what he's been up to recently when he's not in the NBA.
I mean, obviously they're going to be a lot better. How healthy they remain really is the biggest question for them, because if they can be healthy, I mean, they could be anywhere. They could be the first seed. It wouldn't be entirely shocking if they won the most games in the regular season in the Western Conference. It'd be a little bit shocking, of course, because the Western Conference has gotten better since the last time the Memphis Grizzlies won a ton of games. But it wouldn't be like a completely out of the question thing, I think. So it's really one that if you're a gambler, not that this is a gambling podcast, but if you're a gambler, stay away from this one. I wouldn't recommend betting on it because it's just tough to say. But it is interesting that they put them immediately higher than the Warriors, the Clippers, the Lakers, that whole group. Even they're probably around where the Nuggets are, I think, in wins, if I'm not mistaken, from the number you gave previously. They're just around that number, and that's probably pretty accurate. They were pretty good when they were healthy. And Zach Edey, I think, is going to be pretty good for them.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, Zach Edey is definitely
Dude's
a guy
a monster.
Where
he's huge.
People are down on his ceiling, which I don't even think they should be necessarily, but also he can contribute day one.
He's going to be a rookie screens for Ja Morant that are massive, and that's going to make a difference.
Of the teams we've covered so far, Memphis is third in the Western Conference right now.
Wow.
For their over-unders.
Wow.
So far. That's only so far.
Right.
It's Denver at 51.5, Dallas at 49.5, Memphis at 47.5.
That's pretty crazy.
This next team
Minnesota
jumps all of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Over
Minnesota
under
Timberwolves. Yeah.
52.5.
Okay. Are they the well, I guess you can
No.
it'd be a spoiler. They're not the top of
They're not the top.
Okay.
They're the top now of the teams we've covered, but they're not the top because I think everyone knows there's a clear top team in the West right now.
Yeah.
Just for regular season ability, there's a clear top team, and they're still coming up.
Okay.
So Minnesota 52.5.
They lost Kyle Anderson, Jordan McLaughlin, Wendell Moore Jr., Monte Morris. Of course, we know that one. They added Joe Ingles and P.J. Dozier, which is kind of not a great offseason overall, I would say, right?
No, it's not.
And they re-signed Luke Garza. They didn't do much to get better, right? So a lot of their improvements rely, of course, on Anthony Edwards to be better, which I think he will be. I mean, he's really, really young. And McDaniels, of course, is an important one for them to actually start hitting some really interesting shots in the playoffs. If he can start slowly adding some more and more offense to his game the way Mikal Bridges did, I think that would make a big difference for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't know, man. Last year was like everything went right for them, you know? Is that going to happen again? I'm not sure.
They were healthy for sure. It's fair to say that. Mike Conley is old. He played 76 games.
And is really vital for them as like the guy who calms everything down.
Also, Monte Morris, I still don't quite understand. Like, I'm happy to have Monte Morris on the Suns. I still don't understand what happened with him in Minnesota. It felt like, to me, he should have played more of a role than he did. I think maybe because Conley was just so steady and so healthy. Like, if Mike Conley had missed 20 games last year, we would have seen a lot more Monte Morris. But because he was so healthy, Monte was sort of buried on their bench, and I think he only played like 14 minutes a game or something. It always felt to me like he could have contributed more there.
This team is going to be good. And they're in a weird place, obviously, ownership-wise. Like, there's just fight going on with who's going to own the team in the future. But being sort of on the doorstep of the NBA Finals the way they were, I don't know. I guess I'm a little surprised they didn't do more to try to get better. They didn't have a lot of options, to be fair. It's more and more difficult, as we know as Suns fans, to get better once you have this much salary. I don't know. I'm curious how Timberwolves fans feel. Maybe they're just happy to be where they are at this point and just hoping for another good and fun season with young players. But Anthony,
they're still sort of on cloud nine.
A leap from Anthony Edwards could be all it takes. I mean, that's a bigger and more important thing than adding more role players, of course. But yeah, I'm curious how they feel.
I think they're still just on cloud nine. They're just sharing like Nas Reed memes with each other the way Suns fans used to do with Mikal Bridges, and like, that's enough.
Right.
That's enough for them.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, guys. We got manhandled by this team.
Yeah.
Like, we got destroyed by them in the first round. So I'm not allowed in good faith to be like the Suns will be better than them. I would love for that to be the case, but we need to prove it. So I'm not going to put us ahead of them, even in the regular season standings. That said, there is still just, to what you're speaking to, Mike, there's a little bit of doubt here. And I'm not sure exactly where it's coming from. I mean, Ant needs to take that next step.
It is from Ant, right? More than anything else. If he was rock solid and you could really count on him, I mean, he was awesome in the playoffs, don't get me wrong, but you still see some of that decision-making problems. He's very well insulated around him with players that make pretty good decisions, and I think that's helped him out a lot. But like, ultimately, in order to reach that ceiling that they have to get to, or they want to get to, it's up to him, and that's, I think, where the doubt creeps in for me, I guess.
He's still at, just looking at last year, you know, he's a high usage guy, takes a ton of shots, but still at 57% true shooting. I think I saw a semi-viral tweet yesterday, a thread of, and I apologize, I forget the name, Thomas, I think, who was sharing a comparison of all the guards in the NBA on a bunch of statistics. And what struck me about Ant was just the massive gap between him and the rest of the elite guards in the NBA when it comes to pull-up effective field goal percentage. Like, there's still just an element of Not lack of self-creation, because we know Ant is such a force if he can get into the paint. But, like, it's just shot selection with him. He can make shots. He just takes dumb ones. And, like, until he just figures out a little bit more. He's clearly gotten better every year. He really has. So I don't want to be too hard on him, but yeah, there's just a little bit of doubt with this team that still comes up for me. I still just question, I guess, like, you know, who's going to take the baton and be the real face of the NBA and the face of American basketball, right? Is this thing that we debate a lot. And is it going to be Jason Tatum? Is it going to be Anthony Edwards? Is it going to be Ja Morant? Is it going to be Zion Williamson, who's apparently lost 50 pounds in the offseason? Yeah. And there are questions about all these guys. We could talk about it ad nauseum.
Yeah. There's Devin Booker, of course.
And then there's Devin Booker, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw today, there was a quote from Anthony Edwards where he said that nobody was skilled in Michael Jordan's era, that Michael Jordan was the only player that was skilled. He just says weird stuff like that sometimes, and I do find it, at the very least, interesting that he has opinions like that. And look, he's young. He's young. He's really young, in fact. He has a lot of opportunities to improve. But yeah, they're going to be good. They're going to be really good. I don't know if I would bet over on that number, but they're going to be really good.
He doesn't have a filter, is what it is.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's why people like him, right?
He doesn't have yeah, of course. Like, that's what makes Booker, you could argue, like, a little bit boring when he talks to the media. He doesn't give them interesting answers for the most part. But because he's got all the media training and is very much the opposite of what Ant is, which is both on and off the basketball court, he's a player with no filter. Takes the craziest shots, says the craziest things.
The New Orleans Pelicans. A team with a ton of changes because they lost Dyson Daniels, E.J. Liddell, Najee Marshall, Larry Nance Jr., which I forgot about that. Larry Nance Jr. is gone. Jonas Valanciunas, who was a free agent, and Cody Zeller, and added DeJounte Murray. And then Daniel Tice, but DeJounte Murray, obviously the biggest.
DeJounte Murray, Daniel Tice, Yves Missi was their first-round pick.
Yeah, a good pick for them, too. Trying to really figure out that center position for them. I think they want, ultimately, to play Zion with another big. But DeJounte Murray, that's a pretty massive trade for the Pelicans. Have they? I don't think they've given Ingram any sort of contract yet, have they? I don't think they have, because that's an extension. He's still signed this year. I believe he wants an extension, but that's not happening. So I guess it's possible that Ingram can still be traded, but this is a team that now has DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williams. It's this sort of like, it's this big three of like B-tier players.
Well,
at this point.
And CJ McCollum is still there. Mm-hmm. And Trey Murphy is still there. And Herb Jones is still there.
It's a team full of good players.
Well, it's a team full of 6 good players and then nothing, which is like,
I mean, they lost
a little bit difficult. You know, like Valanciunas, Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance, Najee Marshall. That was like their, 6 through 9 or 7 through or 10 or something, right? Like that was basically all of their depth. And they were replacing it with I'm not sure what. Who did you say they signed besides DeJounte Murray? Who's the other guy they brought in?
Daniel Tice.
Yeah, I mean, so they have Daniel Tice and Yves Missi who play the same position to replace Valanciunas.
Yeah.
And otherwise, dude, honestly, I have no idea what their bench is. I have no idea what their bench is right now.
It's going to be tough.
I mean, Trey Murphy or Herb Jones, one of those guys has to come off the bench.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Alvarado, you can't forget about him. Yeah.
If
Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Trey Jemison, Matt Ryan, Malcolm Hill, these are not names that are going to excite
If Jose Alvarado is your 7th man, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, they have a really good starting 5. But they need this Zion weight shit better be true for them. Is all I'm going to say.
It's this would be a totally different story if the Western Conference wasn't just stacked and loaded like it always is, where they could be okay. They could be, if they were in the East, they could be a 5 seed, a 6 seed maybe in the East, but not in the West. It's going to be, everything would have to go right. Like 2 of these guys off the bench would have to have coming out seasons where all of a sudden they're awesome players making a real
if they
impact.
have, again, I've made a lot of Suns comparisons on this episode for obvious reasons. If they have an 04-05 Suns type season where you just have, you've got Steve Nash, Joe Johnson, Q Rich, Sean Marion, Amari Stoudemire, and it doesn't matter that you don't have a bench. That team literally did not have a bench because all of them play 75 games and 35 minutes a game. Then you have the best case scenario season, right?
Yeah.
Then you win 55 games. But if that doesn't happen, if any of those guys go down for an extended period of time, you are in trouble.
And this is a team with Zion and Brandon Ingram who are both,
in particular, because CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram. Like, how long have they been on the Pelicans now? Those two. CJ's been there for 2-3 years.
Yeah, maybe longer. Yeah, 3 years at least, I would say.
CJ has been there for 2.5 seasons.
Okay.
Ingram has obviously been there for
for
even longer. He's been there for 5 years.
The same length of time that Anthony Davis has been on the Lakers. Yeah.
Yeah. We've seen, Ingram is still a good player. It's just a little unfortunate that he's never, I don't know, he's always just like a clear tier below these other types of long wings who he's always compared to. Right? He's never going to be Kevin Durant as much as he models his game
or Paul
after
George.
Kevin Durant or Paul George. And then with CJ is not the player that he was when they brought him in 2.5 years ago. We see the warning signs with CJ McCollum. He's still a talented player.
He was pretty bad last year.
He shot well.
Yeah.
Like, he took 8 threes a game. He shot 43%, but he's not a creator. He's not a defender. So that's why DeJounte Murray comes in, I suppose. But yeah, it's just a lot of B-tier stars, and we will see how it works out for them.
What is their wins over under?
They are set at,
are they 43.5? Oh, they're
45.5.
higher.
Yeah.
Wow. That I don't know about. I might have to write that one down.
I think it might I think it makes sense to put them up. Like, who are you taking issue with there? That they're ahead of Golden State? That they're ahead of the Lakers?
Yeah. We have unhappy Brandon Ingram potentially. Zion, who is not fully capable of staying healthy. Yes, maybe everything goes right for Zion, but how many years?
He's got the nutrition. He's hitting the treadmill. This is the year. Did you see that picture of him the other day?
Yeah.
It's not just like people are making it up. Like, he does look thinner.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not gonna. I'm just saying. I would, if I were to bet on something, I would bet that he wasn't healthy, not that he would.
Yeah.
be.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair.
all I'm saying.
That's
okay,
fair.
let's talk about this team, the OKC Thunder. This is obviously the team that has the number one, the
100%.
highest amount of win total. In fact, do you have it in front of you? Let's just start with that.
They are set at 56.5. Number one in the Western.
Wow, that's really high.
I would not take the over on this. I'll say right now.
And yeah, they could easily hit the over, but I wouldn't bet it either, just because it's rare.
Could.
This team's often when young teams are good, they really want to win every game. They really go all out in the regular season to try to win every game. So it's definitely possible. They re-signed Isaiah Joe, massive for them, I think, because he was awesome, one of the best shooters in the NBA last year. They re-signed Aaron Wiggins, also a good player for them last year. And then, of course, they added Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein and lost Josh Giddey. This was this is the best offseason for any team, I think, in the
and
outside of the Philadelphia 76ers, probably.
They didn't give up a single first-round pick, at least, in doing so.
This is a team that was awesome last year. All of their good players are young, and now added 2 players that could really kind of perfectly fit onto their team.
That don't need the ball in their hands and already have a history of just contributing good role player stuff.
Yeah, this is the favorite. We've talked about it before, but this is the favorite in the West in this coming year. They really, if they're healthy, if they have any health luck at all, this is, the West runs through Oklahoma City.
I think the one thing you could say here, if you want to be a little more down on OKC, is that they already had health luck last year, right? So, that just has to happen. Let's be honest. You have to be healthy to win 57 games, which is what they did.
Yeah.
But so Shea played 75 games. Jalen Williams played 71 games. Chet Holmgren, who's so integral to everything they do, played every single game last year.
Yeah.
Lou Dort, 79 games. Josh Giddey, 80 games. They swapped him out for Caruso. Kaysen Wallace played 82 games. Isaiah Joe played 78 games. Aaron Wiggins played 78 games. Their rotation, 1 through 9, every single guy was always there. So the one argument that you could make that maybe OKC is not as good this year is if something happens to their clean slate of health. But all of these guys are young. As far as I can tell, none of them have concerning injury histories. They brought in a couple of rock-solid role players. If you wanted to take the over here, I wouldn't even blame you. Like, yeah, they could easily win 60 games. But I would still be a little bit too risk-averse to do that.
Yeah, it's crazy to bet on any team to win 58 or more. There's just no guarantee. Maybe you do that for an old Warriors team with KD on it. I'm not even sure how often they did that. But yeah, it's a very good team. This is a offseason that we've already covered pretty extensively, so we don't have to spend a ton of time on it. But I even think losing Josh Giddey just for the fact that he could have been a distraction was a good. He's a good player, obviously. 21 years old. I think not even a bad trade for the Bulls overall. But they don't have that anymore and don't have to deal with that at their away games or anything like that. Any other thoughts on them? Got a few more here, right? I mean, we're gonna skip the Suns.
We know how we feel about the Suns. Yeah. My thought about the Suns is that, if we're talking regular season, here I'll just throw this about the Suns. We're set at 47.5.
Okay, so we're right there with the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yes, but we're also one less than last year, which is interesting to me because this is post Tyus Jones signing. This is like the rosters are set now. And we're still only at 47.5. And I just need the Suns to win more regular season games this year.
Yeah.
I know easier said than done, but I want home court advantage in the first round.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy in this conference, but we're talking about teams like Minnesota that just destroyed us. We're talking about teams like OKC that are probably going to be the favorite. I would be shocked if you won more games than either of those two. But you want to avoid them for as long as possible in the playoffs. And, getting top 4 advantage, I think, would be really crucial for this team this year. So here's what I can say before we move on. And the next team, I guess, we'll talk about very briefly is Portland.
Yeah.
The Suns being at 47.5 would place them. I have to do this quick math. So OKC's first, Minnesota second, Denver's third, Dallas is fourth.
Yep.
And then Minnesota and Phoenix are tied 5th, 6th. That's what we're looking at as FanDuel's portrait of the Western Conference right now.
Memphis and Phoenix.
Did I say what
Minnesota,
did I say?
Yeah.
Sorry. Memphis and Phoenix are tied 5th and 6th. So right now, if all of that bared out, you're looking at a first-round matchup against either Dallas or Denver.
We need one of the teams that are expected to be good to suck. It'd be kind of nice for that to happen, right? Just one of these teams to be a massive disappointment. Just because Memphis being thrown into the mix here when the West was already a gauntlet last year. It's not great timing for all these Western Conference teams trying to figure it out. The Portland Trailblazers, we talked about them. You mentioned them earlier. Just quickly on them. Denny Avdia, I forgot about this. This is one of those things when I was looking through this earlier. I was like, oh, yeah. Denny Avdia was traded for Malcolm Brogdon, who is now on the Wizards, which is just a guy. Malcolm Brogdon was arguably their only good player last year and is now gone. Denny was good. We like Denny on this podcast, as you all know, but now he's gone. Devontae Graham also signed there on a 1-year deal. Another player that they probably don't need. Kind of a fascinating player for them to sign. I don't know why.
Devontae Graham?
That. Yeah.
I mean, they just need to hit the salary floor, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Devontae Graham could average 15 points per game on this team.
Yeah,
and they would be really bad. They're going to be really bad.
They had to replace Malcolm Brogdon, and they signed a player who's just going to launch. They're going to be really bad, yeah. And they drafted a center. They have DeAndre Ayton on the roster. They drafted a center.
Who'd they draft? I
forget his name, and now I have to look it up. But
Klingon. Yes. They took Klingon. Okay. Wow, this team, what the hell are they doing? Okay, so they still have Jeremy Grant, correct?
Yes, and it would not surprise me if both Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton were on different teams by the end of the year. I'm not sure any team wants DeAndre Ayton at this point of his career. I think it might be, who would want him, I guess. Maybe a team that's just bad already. Like maybe they can work something out with the Washington Wizards again and find him a home that is like a perfect fit for him. But yeah.
Jeremy Grant is a good player, but he also, remember, signed that extension that has him making like 30-something million a year. So
yeah,
I don't think he would be. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong, but I don't
I'm
think
pretty out on him if I'm being honest. But yeah,
I don't think he would be the easiest guy to trade either at that price point. If he were making 20, it's a different story. But he's literally making like 34.
Let's their over under for wins, and then we can move on because we don't got to keep
21.5.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense to me.
I mean, the funny thing is they're so bad that like, you'd be hard pressed to take the under on 21.5.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Like that's already really bad. I guess the last thing I'll say here, it's so what's wrong with Scoot Henderson, man?
Yeah.
That's the one thing that could save them. Like, what if Scoot just had a really bad rookie year?
I mean, it doesn't help that Chauncey Billups is a bad coach.
I honestly did not watch enough Blazers games to tell you guys what's wrong with Scoot. But I was not expecting him to shoot 38% from the field. I know he's a skinny point guard who's not like, just wasn't going to come in and dominate, but he had a bad rookie year.
Sacramento Kings, interesting one. Departures, Harrison Barnes, Chris Duarte, Davion Mitchell, Sasha Vezenkov. Vezenkov? I don't know.
Yeah, yes.
Re-signed Alex Len and Malik Monk. Malik Monk was a surprise.
Alex Len somehow sticking around in the NBA. That is my guy. I have no idea how he's still in the NBA, but good for him.
And we know the big one, DeMar DeRozan, now in the Sacramento Kings. Jalen McDaniels also joined via trade with the Raptors. Jordan McLaughlin and Orlando Robinson, 1-year deals. DeMar DeRozan, really the only addition, because even Jalen McDaniels didn't play much at all on the Raptors, who were not good. And so, I mean, we talked a little bit about this when it happened. Now going through the rest of the Western Conference, I don't know. Like, I don't know how much this changes anything, I guess. The thing is, he was really good for the Bulls last year, and he was especially good at the end of games.
He's still a really smart basketball player who just, I felt for a while, just deserved better than them. And deserved better than this late career arc he's had in general, right? Like of playing on San Antonio when they weren't really going anywhere for several years. And I get it. DeMar DeRozan has an obvious intrinsic flaw to his game. It is hard to build a really good team around DeMar DeRozan as one of your best players. But if anyone has a chance to do it, I'm kind of in on Sacramento with their current core. Being able to do it. Now, would I take the over here? I don't know. Well, okay, here's the first thing. De'Aaron Fox is a better shooter than he's ever been before. He shot 37% from deep last year. He took a career high 7.8. He shoots more pull-ups. He's still the transition, like kick it into next gear, awesome slasher he's always been. But De'Aaron Fox being able to shoot and Kevin Huerter being able to shoot at shooting guard, and a lot's going to come down to Keegan Murray, who I thought had a disappointing sophomore season, and he needs to be better in year 3 in order for all of this to click into place. A lot
of what the future of the Sacramento Kings can be comes down to Keegan Murray at this point.
Comes down to Keegan Murray, for sure. But assuming that DeRozan is their starting small forward, at least it kind of feels like he's insulated by shooters. Right? Kind of feels that way.
Sort of. I mean,
and they've got
Sabonis
a lot of
doesn't shoot at all, and you're desperate for that Fox thing to be real, which, you got to do it for multiple seasons in a row to really believe in it, so we'll see.
They also just have, DeRozan plus Fox plus Sabonis is a lot of smart playmaking.
I think there's a good chance that this is really awkward for the first 2 months of the season, and that might be enough to make it hard for them to win a lot of games, or at least be in the upper half of the conference.
Put it this way. How about this? This is the last Pacific Division team that we have to cover. The last team that... Do you remember, how did we do against Sacramento last year? I can't remember.
Well, there was that one game where they were down by like 18.
Comeback.
Yeah.
The one comeback. Yeah. Okay, I remember the one comeback game, obviously. That was huge.
And I think they went small against Sabonis again, and with KD at center, and the Suns won again the next time they played. So they definitely won at least 2 games against them. I'm not sure about the other 2, but...
Who's the biggest threat to... divisions don't matter in the NBA per se, we know that, but just like... Who's the biggest threat to taking the Pacific Division crown from the Suns?
Yeah, it could be the Kings. I mean, they're the only
Kings.
They're the only team that improved, I think. That definitively improved. I think it's possible the Warriors improved a little bit just with the fact that Klay Thompson wasn't very good, and they don't have to. Like they had to give him shots. They don't have to give him shots anymore. But yeah, this is probably the team that definitely improved. And yeah, maybe you're right. What is their win total at?
46.5. One below us.
What did they win last year?
46.
Okay, so yeah, this is kind of how I feel. Like, I'm not sure they're going to be much better than last year, but I do think they're going to be better. But I think the fact that it might be a little bit rocky at first, like if they go, 500 over the first 30 games of the season or whatever, and then they start to put it together a little bit and they just go slightly above 500 for the rest of the season, that's how they get to 46 or whatever. Like, that's kind of how I feel about them. I don't know. It could be bad at first. It's kind of weird to put DeMar DeRozan on your team. It's not like he fits perfectly on this team, in my opinion, at the very least. They need Sabonis to have the ball. They need Fox to have the ball, and DeMar DeRozan is not a good off-ball player.
You know what was huge, too, though? That we didn't even bring up his name. I thought for sure they were going to lose Malik Monk.
Yeah.
So the fact that they not only added DeRozan to their starting lineup, but they get to keep Malik Monk as maybe one of the best 6 men in the league is... That's another shooter.
Yeah.
It's another one. I think they could find the right lineup combinations, but we'll see.
2 more teams. This podcast is going to be a long one. San Antonio Spurs re-signed Charles Bassey. Mamu, I'm not even going to try his full name, also re-signed, who was really good against the Suns in that one game where he just kind of went off towards the end of the season. Also added Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes. And it only really lost Devontae Graham.
Jetty Osman.
And also, of course, they have...
Isn't Jetty Osman still unsigned?
Yes, I believe he is. So I guess it's possible he returns. I don't think the Spurs have any roster spots open right now.
That's what I'm wondering is Jetty Osman feels like he should be somewhere. The NBA is a tough business.
They drafted number 4 overall. They drafted Castle. Stephon Castle, I think his name is.
Yes, Stephon Castle.
And he rocked in Summer League. He was pretty awesome. I don't know if you watched him at all. And they could be... they're going to be a lot better, I think, in this upcoming year. A lot of it relies on Chris Paul staying healthy, but even if he just plays like 55 games, they're still going to be a lot better. They were not good last year, and part of that 22. Was by design.
22 wins.
22 wins, and for the first, 50 games of the season, they were playing a guy at point guard who's never played point guard in his life, in Jeremy Sohan, in a way that made zero sense. And then, of course,
their page. There were guys on the San Antonio Spurs last year who have no business being in the NBA that were playing like 1,500 minutes. Hold on.
Yeah. You've made the case on Discord or even on the podcast in the past that you think the Spurs are going to be a lot better, which I think they're going to be a lot better too.
Malachi Branham played 1,600 minutes for this team last year.
Jeez, yeah, that's tough.
You take players like that and you just substitute them with 1,600 minutes of Chris Paul, and that is +5, +6 wins right there. Now, this does not mean that this team is suddenly, I've gotten arguments with people on the Discord before about this team, just because the Spurs are so interesting. I don't think this is a playoff team.
Right.
In an absolute best case scenario, I suppose they could be a playoff team. But I don't think anyone's suggesting seriously that this could be a playoff team. Their FanDuel over-under is set at 36.5.
Yeah,
even that feels a little high to me.
That's a lot better. I mean, yeah.
That's 15 additional wins if you were taking the over. But
it's not out of the question to me. I might take that over.
I would understand your logic in doing so. My thing has always just been, they added Harrison Barnes, they added Chris Paul. You don't play Malachi Branham and Jeremy Sohan 2,000 minutes each.
Yes,
and
you don't play Jeremy Sohan at point guard. You don't play
him at point
Wemby
guard.
at center, where he thrived last year before they tried to, they spent the first half of the season playing him at power forward. It worked a lot better with him at center.
It feels like if Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes give you 50 games each, like you're saying, they need to be somewhat healthy. But there's a pretty easy path to seeing this team win 35 games. And at the very least, you see the San Antonio Spurs come up on your schedule and you're like, okay, we need to...
It's not a day off.
Yeah, well, unfortunately,
it's not the Portland Trailblazers.
The Suns treated them like a day off last year, and that's why we lost multiple. We lost multiple times to them.
Well, the Suns aren't good enough to treat any team like a day off at this point.
Despite how bad they were, but especially this year, it just feels like they're going to cause problems for other teams. Even if they're not a playoff team, they are going to be in the late season portion of the schedule playing spoiler for other teams. And Wemby is just such a presence. He takes away so much defensively, and he's so inevitable on he's Thanos defensively. He just takes away so much from what you're able to do, being able to get into your proper sets. I can't wait to see what Chris Paul can do with him. They're gonna be like they're a must league pass team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're just gonna be fascinating.
Last team, Utah Jazz, re-signed Johnny Juzang, re-signed Lauri Markkanen, which was a massive one, of course, 5-year extension. Everyone knows about that. Added Drew Eubanks, Patty Mills, and Svi Mikhailuk, and lost Chris Dunn, Russell Westbrook, technically, and Omer Yurtseven. This is a team that's probably going to try to be bad this year, as we've talked about in the past. They have a good coach, which makes it a little harder. Lauri Markkanen's a really good player as well, which makes it a little bit harder. But this team is not any sort of threat in the West at all, and not overly exciting to talk about. But do you have any thoughts on them?
Did you mention Drew Eubanks?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I missed that.
2-year deal for Drew.
Yeah, I don't know. He feels like a Utah Jazz, though, doesn't he? It just feels right.
If he's good there, which he might be, because he was pretty good in Portland, I'm going to be pissed because he was awful here.
They're a really funny team too, man, just because they drafted a bunch of guys. They got Cody Williams, 10th overall, Isaiah Collier. I like Isaiah Collier. He fell to 29th. I was seeing him in I don't know, it felt like a lot of mock drafts I was seeing him in the teens, and then they got him at 29.
Right.
And then the funny one that everyone's talking about is Kyle Filipowski,
right?
Who knows exactly what's going on there, but there's some weird shit going on with him.
Mm-hmm.
They got him at 32. They are not going to be good. There is definitely a chance. Well, I don't know. So if they're not going to trade Lowry this year, do they even have other veterans that they could offload from their roster if they wanted to say, is there even more of a fire sale that they could do?
That's a good question.
Mid-season? Let me see who else they have.
Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins. Those are the guys. Walker Kessler we talked about.
Yeah, Walker Kessler. If they decide to give up on Walker Kessler, then I suppose.
Not a veteran, but Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, those are probably... And then John Collins, I don't think anyone wants, but they could trade him potentially. I mean, those are players they could get rid of. I mean, Jordan Clarkson's still pretty good as far as a bench scorer, and I think Colin Sexton would be awesome as a bench scorer.
Sexton has 2 years remaining on his deal at $19 million, which is solid value, and was low-key pretty awesome last year.
I like Colin Sexton, yeah, and I've liked him since the draft. So it's a team that's not overly exciting. What is their win total at? Actually, I'm curious. They're probably above the Portland Trailblazers, right?
Yes, but 29.5. So the way FanDuel sees it is basically Portland is the joke of the conference, and then Utah is expected to be bad but not like horrendous. And then basically everyone else, I mean, unless you want to say San Antonio is considered bad if they're at 37. But honestly, I would say everyone else is in like play-in territory.
Right. Yeah, I would say so. It wouldn't be entirely surprising for the Spurs to be in the play-in.
One of these teams that is expected to be in play-in territory, somewhere in the 40 to 45 range, one of these teams is going to be the Memphis of this year and like just have the season from hell and everything goes wrong for them and they're going to fall to the cellar of the conference. We just don't know who that is yet. But it's going to be someone.
Yeah.
I think it could be the Clippers. If you wanted to put a gun to my head right now and say who's that team going to be that wins 28 games this year because just everything goes wrong, I think it's going to be the Clippers.
Well, I mean, just thinking about the Western Conference as a whole, the Clippers are the team that year over year got worse. Like they got the most worse, I guess is a word to say that. And then the team that got better the most would be, of course, the Memphis Grizzlies. That's the assumption here, if they have any sort of health luck. So as far as the overall picture of the Western Conference, the hope is that the Clippers, over the course of the season, fall out of that picture pretty dramatically, and then Memphis Grizzlies can kind of take their spot. Because otherwise, if they're both good, if both of those teams are competing for a spot in the playoffs, that's going to make it even harder for a team like the Suns to maintain any sort of top seed in the West, because that's games that they got to play against those teams.
I
the
think
Clippers handled the Suns last year. The Suns were never good against the Clippers last year.
That's true. I don't want to talk too much shit about the Clippers because, Jesus Christ, the loss we had against the Clippers in April had me on the brink. I was in a dark place after that game. I think the bottom line here is we're continuing to see a trend play out that we've seen for several years now in the Western Conference and the NBA, but in the Western Conference especially, which is that we're in an era of parity, and there are going to be a lot of teams that are good, probably relatively few teams that actually threaten to win. You know, if you think back to 20 years ago when the Suns were a 60-win team, but they also were competing against the Spurs and the Mavs that were 60-win teams, or the Lakers sometimes were a 60-win team. There were seasons where there were 3 or 4 60-win teams at a time in the Western Conference, but the only reason that was possible is because there were other teams that were winning 20 games. That is not currently what it's like in the Western Conference. Right. There's a lot of teams in the middle, which means that there is less margin for error for everyone, Suns included. And we're going to have yet another year of a lot of squads being stacked up in the middle. So we need to do our best to end up on top of that pile.
Later this week, we'll be back with this same thing, but with the Eastern Conference. We can talk about what teams improved or got worse in the Eastern Conference on our Patreon podcast. If you'd like to join, you can join us on patreon.com/thetimeline. Only $6 a month for additional episodes every week. We appreciate you all for listening. I know this was a long one. We'll be back soon with another long one. Thanks, everyone.